My name is Patrick Frazee, and I'm the manager for health and safety for General Motors North American operations. In 1993, Paul O'Neill, who came from Alcoa, joined our board of directors, and at one of his first meetings he asked the question, how you doing in safety? And no one at the board could answer that question. And that sort of started the ball rolling, and the questions began from the top at that point, how are we doing in safety? And they would pass the buck down, and finally we came back with some answers for the next meeting for him, but they weren't very good answers. If you compared us to other companies like Alcoa and other world-class leaders, we were far down the ladder. If Alcoa had an injury rate of 2.7, ours was 10 times higher than that, 27. And so we could see that we had a long ways to go. We had a lot of resources, we had a lot of people and time and money that we've spent on developing health and safety programs. And when we benchmarked, we did a lot of benchmarking at first, and when we did that, the other companies looked at some of our materials and said, wow, these are great. In fact, they said these are world class. But what we found out was they were great on paper, but in reality, we didn't implement them. In order to illustrate where we were to the leadership, we would ask the question, if your son or daughter were to have an opportunity to work at General Motors or a coal mine, which would you choose? Without hesitation, almost everyone would say, well, we would have them work at General Motors. And then we would show them the chart that would show that the coal mining industry was safer than General Motors. The manufacturing managers, when they realized that they had to meet some very aggressive goals, they had all been plant managers at one time, and when they looked at each other and said, how are we going to get there, they realized they knew that our plants, if they stayed the way they were then, that we'd never reach those goals. They realized that we had to have some sort of a cultural change in our organization if we were going to meet those goals. What are the real rules? What are the rules that people follow, the unwritten rules? And once we understood what people were responding to, like the boss wants you to get that job done, and he'll tell you, you got to do it safely, but you know what? We're going to lose 15 cars if you don't get it done in 3 minutes. And that was the real message. When one of the top manufacturing executives visited a plant and saw an individual who was operating a machine without the proper protective gear, like I believe it was protective gloves, all right, he shut the machine down and told the employee that you need to go and get your protective gloves. And that was sort of a shot heard around the world, because the plant manager from that plant called the other plant managers and said, do you know what Joe just did? He shut down the press so the guy could go get his gloves. That had never been done before. No one had ever received that message. No one had ever sent that message. The culture was productivity, and getting the parts out was more important than safety. The reason it changed is because the manufacturing organization, led by the Manufacturing Managers Council, took ownership of health and safety. They recognized that safety was an underlying part of the overall business, and that it was an essential part, that you had to have employees work safely if they're going to be productive and produce quality parts. Over the first 3 years, we saw a 50% improvement in our injury rates, both lost workday case rate and the total recordables rate. And we have seen a continual downtrend of those rates. We've accomplished a 90% reduction in each of those categories. And if you were to look at workers' comp costs, we would see a similar downtrend. A lot of feedback was, well, this is just another program of the month. This will pass. But it didn't pass, because the manufacturing managers and the manufacturing organization held to their guns. They stuck to their guns and said, we're going to follow this plan and we're going to be consistent, and this is a long-term thing. It's not just a short-term effort.